Good morning. Welcome back to the final round of the SCG Bangkok Business Challenge at SASIN 2018. So for those who have just joined us, we have today 6 finalists from the 16 teams that presented over the last 2 days. They are pitching their innovation to a panel of our judges here. The winner will walk away with 20,000 US dollars, as well as His Majesty the Kings of Thailand's award. And we also have other awards, like Her Royal Highness Princess Mahachakri Sirinthorn's Sustainability Award. The winner there will walk away with 8,000 US dollars. And then we have the HTC Asia Innovation Award. And the prize money for that is 10,000 US, which the HTC Asia Innovation Award will be announced right after the last presentation. So all the teams, please be here, otherwise you're not going to get the money, okay? So please give a warm welcome to our team from Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, Team VicLab. So let me remind you the team. You have 30 minutes, okay? After 5 minutes, the judges will be allowed to ask questions. You have 3 times notifications, one at the 5 minutes to allow for the interactive session, and then 2 time warnings, 3 minutes and 1 minute before the end, okay? So these are the timekeepers up front here next to you. Okay, are you ready? Feel good to go? Yep. Okay, so we'll start the clock as soon as you start. Okay, good luck.
Somchai is a cleaner who lives in the outskirts of Bangkok. She's looking after 3 kids and can't even afford to visit the doctor when she's ill because the medicine is so expensive. $130,000 is how much it costs typically to treat a cancer patient. That's per year. The reason drugs in general are so expensive is because of the high failure rate during the drug discovery phase is factored into the cost of the successful drug, thus making it so expensive because the companies need to recoup the losses. What are we doing about this? Today, we from VicLab will share our secret with you and the rest of the world. We have developed novel building blocks with clear IP domain and proof of concept that will make drugs more efficient by reducing the failure rates during the drug discovery phase and thus making drugs more cheaper and accessible to more people. Our solution through substitution. Let me tell you more about these building blocks. What are they? As you can see on the slide over there, that's a typical or traditional building block, the benzene ring. While the benzene ring helps drugs enter the cell easily and also dissolves in water and the blood easily, it lacks something very important. That is, it does not help the drug stay in the body long enough to be as effective as it can be. Here's where our novel building block, the BCP, comes in. It can help improve bioavailability by helping the drug stay in the body longer. It ticks all 3 boxes, thus making drugs more effective, efficient, and leading to cheaper drugs for everyone. Our business model develops over time. We can produce BCP on a small scale and sell it to customers. Here comes the best part. We have already sold these BCPs to 2 customers, one in Germany and one in the United States. In addition to that, we can produce BCP on a slightly larger scale and also license the process of manufacturing BCP to others. Beyond that, we also have plans to develop, using the BCP, our own products, taking it to the PDC stage, which is the preclinical drug candidate stage, and then selling it to customers. What is our value proposition?
So we are developing the BCP, as we told you before, and we're creating high value for our customers. Our customers are biotech startups, catalog companies, which are mainly distributors, research labs, and big pharma companies. What we all have in common for them is we produce BCP compounds cheaper than others do. Thus, those customers you can see here in that slide, they all profit from that. Coming now to innovativeness, you've seen that BCP is more innovative than the benzene rings we used before. The good thing about this is that catalog companies and research labs, they get access to breakthrough innovations. But beyond this, biotech startups and big pharma companies, which are mainly working in the drug discovery process, they, moreover, profit from clear and differentiated IP. Because when the BCP is used in the structure, you can license it more easily. And the market also validates what we're doing. We have collaborated with GSK and they have funded our research for 2 years. Moreover, a big pharma company has declared their intent to collaborate with VClub, and this is us, in the future, and we're gonna have discussions with them soon. You see here our funding requirements. In the seed round, we required 10 million to finance our drug discovery process for 2 years. And it is very obvious that this is a long-term investment. In year 6, we're going to be valuated at 300 million, which results in a 900% increase of the investment, which is 44% of ERR. Why can we do that? We have a diverse team which has experience across different countries and across different functions. May I introduce to you the chairman and founder, Vikrant Atso. He has significant experience in the BCP research. And moreover, my team, the CFO, Jamie Zulueta, he has significant experience in the finance sector. Our COO, Pravin Rush, who has experience in operations, and CMO, Ella Schwa, who has marketing experience. And myself, CEO, I was working in pharmaceutical industry for over 5 years. Let me now hand over to our researcher.
Thank you, Katja. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain what building blocks are so you know what we are talking about. So building blocks are small molecular fragments such as the ones that I have shown here. These are basically small molecules which you can secure from common sources, easily available sources such as crude oil and perhaps even plant origins. What scientists do is they stitch together these building blocks to make something that we call as molecules. Now, these molecules may or may not have medicinal properties. If they do have a medicinal property, then it can go ahead and be a drug. However, the process to take it from molecules to medicine is long. And this is where I explain that. Usually, a drug discovery pipeline looks like this. So it goes through various stages, and it ends with human trials. And if human trials are good, then you get your one molecule, which is your drug. But it starts with about 100 to 1,000 molecules. This is just a number. It can vary. And this is also an ideal scenario. Not all molecules that go in, or not every single drug discovery campaign works. Many of them fail. 95% of these actually fail because your drug discovery pipeline is riddled with holes, and your molecules can fall off at any stage, even at stage when it's in the market, as we have shown here. So the question that comes to mind is, why exactly do molecules fail? And that's an obvious question. The less obvious question, which I would like to make more apparent, is if molecules are failing, is it because of the fabric with which they are being made, the very building blocks? And if they have been made from the same building blocks for the last 7, 8 decades, are we running out of the permutations and combinations and entering a phase where we are encroaching on somebody else's patent space and hence patent infringement issues? That adds to the cost of the drugs substantially. So on this slide, what I have shown you is 4 molecules which have 2 things in common. First one, they have failed in phase trials recently. So they have failed in phase 2 or phase 3. The second thing that I would like to draw your attention to is the building blocks with which they are being made. So Praveen just talked about the benzene ring building block, and you can see plenty of benzene rings in each of these molecules. That's probably a reason why they could not go ahead and succeed. And you can imagine the losses that has caused. So BCP in action. Let me tell you in very simplistic words what you need from a drug or a drug candidate to go through that entire pipeline. The first thing you know is better solubility. It should be soluble.
I'm sorry to interrupt because this is fascinating, and I sense that we're all hesitant to ask questions because we're a little out of our depth from a chemistry point of view. But from what you said, there are other people already making these BCP compounds. Is that correct?
There are a few research labs which are working on this. That is absolutely correct. I'm not aware of anybody who wants to use BCPs in drug discovery the way we are proposing it. We want to make it a focused approach, and BCP is one of our building blocks. We have others in the pipeline.
Okay, but I think you also mentioned that you have the ability to produce these cheaper than the competition. Could you explain how you derive that cost advantage and whether it's sustainable? And if the market opens up and people realize that this is better than benzene rings for building blocks, why will you stay competitive in terms of your pricing?
Well, we have started working on this from the last 5 years. We have gathered plenty of market intelligence, and we have also put our methods that we have not published them. We have the publications that you see up there are all strategic. That's just to entice the industry. So most of our know-how is undercovers with Agency for Science, Technology, and Research. Now, if somebody wants to come in, they would have to more or less spend the same amount of time unless they put a lot of money into this research, which is unlikely. And we have done an analysis of that. So big pharma companies would never enter this domain because they are too big and they do not want to spend time in research, which is preclinical trials. They're not going to do it. Small pharmaceutical companies, it's even worse. They have to be smack on target. So who does this leave us with? It leaves us with academicians. And at this point, there are maybe less than 10 groups which are working on BCP, and that too, that's not their main focus.
So sorry. Can you explain more why wouldn't they invest in this? Because if they reduce the time to come up with the new drug, they should benefit directly. So why wouldn't they do it?
Yeah, I never said they won't. In fact, what we did say is they are talking with us.
I think you just did say they wouldn't.
No, I said they won't invest on their own accord. I thought your question was why wouldn't they invest in our company?
But GSK, right, they funded your things. And one of my questions is actually, if they did that, are you going to be able to kind of sell it to other players that are, in the market? And also like the licensing part, you mentioned that. Talk a little bit about it, how you would go about.
Just to be clear, that our cooperation with the GSK, it was happen in a pre-competitive stage. So it doesn't mean that we are have an exclusive partnership with the GSK in our BCP project.
But what did they ask from you in exchange for the $2 million of funding that they gave you? Was that a pure grant, or is there any obligation from your side towards them?
As Ella just mentioned, it was in a pre-competitive stage. So I'll explain how innovation mapping is done in this area. You do some fundamental research first, then you get your background IP, and then you bring it to a stage where a company can pick it up. So if we had done the background IP ourselves, that is the pre-competitive research, GSK would have to come in at a later stage and probably pay more to get hands-on on this. So what happened is I was at one of the conferences, and we usually advertise our work very well. And they asked us of the possibility of going ahead with this. And we were more than happy. It was not a research grant, it was a collaboration. It had deliverables and milestone payments. But it was mutually agreed that the IP will belong to both parties, A-Star and GSK.
And the licensing part, I think you haven't answered yet.
Sorry. Licensing part, so we have 3 business streams. We haven't come to that slide yet. We are going to make small molecules, not reveal how they're made, and we are going to make them on small scale and sell it. If people want to come and take a look at how we are making it, they're more than welcome to have file a CTA with us, and then we can license that process or our IP, either a TD or a patent, to them. In the second part, where we have an actual process to make kilogram or multi-kilogram quantities, the same will apply. We'll have a patent. And in the third part, where we have a drug discovery, it's very generic. I mean, that's what most of the biotechs do. You have a license. You can either license out your patent, or you can be acquired by a bigger company.
So which one are you going on as far as your plan? The medium case?
Okay. So in the medium case,
I don't need to understand what the medium case is. I just want to know your valuation of the company is based upon the medium case, or it's obviously not based upon the worst case.
yeah, the valuation, at which stage? The stage?
Well, I'm just trying to understand the value. You say that in the medium case, the NPV of the firm is expected to be 28 million US dollars at a discount rate of 4%, 40%.
Right. So in the medium case, that's that's in the case where we do not produce the BCP on a large scale, but we do have the process.
Okay.
So if we have the process, we can license this process.
So
Let me just link it, sorry.
So then, if I look at the medium, let's start with the medium case.
All right.
Let's start with the medium case, and what's the revenue in year 6 for the medium case?
Because I assumed in the medium case that we would develop a preclinical drug candidate.
What's the revenue?
From that, we get 200 million.
Okay, so that's 220 million you have in your plan.
Right.
And what's the profit in that year?
The pre-tax income is around 214.
Right, so that comes out to a 97% net margin, correct?
Right. Because the thing with drug discovery is you expand every year.
Okay, so over, that's it. You completely lost me there. There's no company, there's no way you can convince me that you got a 97% net margin. If you came here with a 50% net margin, you may have had a chance. Can you explain to me how it is that you're going to get a 97% net margin?
Well, to get to the 200 million, we had to expend at least 4 million per year. So that's why you see in year 1, year 2, year 3, we're burning cash. So year 1, year 2, year 3, all the year 4, year 5, we're spending for that 200 million.
But just so that I understand, those long-term numbers depend on you moving into a slightly different part of the value chain, right? You start by just manufacturing the building blocks, whether in small quantities or large quantities, I'm not that interested, but you're just making the building blocks. You then take a leap of faith that you actually turn into a company that can use those building blocks to actually create a more finished product. What makes you believe you can move from just being the guys who can manufacture the, the building blocks to taking that next step? And why would you even want to do that?
So, well, thank you for the question. Things were not apparent because we haven't come to that slide yet. We are going to pull that slide up for you. We selling compounds to companies on a small and large scale is a plan of our strategy. It's not something we look forward to make revenue in the future. The idea is to create a market and an ecosystem, encourage pharma companies who are not using this molecule right now, encourage them by feeding them with new building blocks. They will use them in their lead molecules, and they will, at a certain stage, hopefully go to a PDC stage where we can supply them on large PCP building blocks on a larger scale, just the PCP building block. While we are doing that, the last slide. Business strategy. So this is what we have. While we are doing that, our main focus is always from year 0 or from year 1 is going to be drug discovery. So we are going to start with identification of lead molecules ourselves, and we plan to bring those to the PDC stage ourselves. That's the main focus. The other part is develop the ecosystem and lead it. So we are just envisioning what's going to happen 10 years from now.
Okay, and then my other question, which comes back to one of my colleagues' points. Who currently sells the existing building blocks, the benzene rings, into the catalog companies and pharma and everybody else? Because actually those are the people you are displacing, taking their livelihood away from them, and they're probably the ones who would be most incentivized to invest to compete with you or provide new products into their existing distribution channels, which they must have had for years. So what's that side of the industry look like? Who are you actually displacing, and what are they going to do about it?
So based on our research, there is a company who is selling the BCP in the market. But the difference is just they are selling the BCP, but we are manufacturing BCP in a large scale. So we are the only one player in the market who sells BCP on large scale. So
not the existing. Forget about your new technology competitors. Talk to me about the people who are going to go, oh my gosh, my whole business has disappeared because Vica Lab took it from me.
Well, the thing is, we are not going to really displace anybody as such. We're creating a new market. This is the blue ocean strategy, if you look at it that way. Nobody's selling BCP compounds, or nobody's using BCP compounds of AVR. There is one company, as Ella mentioned, which is selling BCP on catalogs. So they get BCP compounds from various sources, and they're trading them. What we are doing is we are generating new BCP compounds, putting it in our catalog for a different reason, and taking it ahead. So the short answer is it's a blue ocean for us right now. We are not going to displace anything, but those people can be our JVs.
But sorry, if I wanted to go buy some benzene rings today, where would I go to purchase them if I was a pharma company or someone else?
The benzene ring, of course, we are not the only one seller of the benzene ring, but what we offer is that the BCP with the novel building block, which can replace the traditional benzene ring.
No, I understand that, but who do I buy this from today?
Benzene ring is very commonly available. Literally, you can buy it from hardware store. There are multiple, many providers of benzene ring. I mean, the thing has been on the market for the last 80 years. You can buy it from catalog companies. You can buy it from CMOs. You can buy it from suppliers of various types.
So all of those people who are currently selling that product will lose revenue as a result of you promoting this new building block infrastructure, right? Because they won't sell benzene rings anymore. Do you anticipate a reaction from those people, or is it so fragmented that they can't do anything about it? Or, you know, how are you going to address the reaction of the people that you are, with all due respect, displacing somehow from this industry?
I think just to going back to our strategy as well, I think these potential people that you mentioned that we might have a reaction, they could be our customers. Because in terms of what we are producing it small scale, large scale, but also we can license the process of manufacturing it to them. So when they know and they see the benefits, which has been published in papers already, they will come to the table with us and they could be our customers.
So they're all distributors rather than manufacturers, effectively.
Absolutely. Oh, there are manufacturers too, but the ecosystem consists of various different segments. Manufacturers and distributors have.
So benzene ring is currently just a byproduct of the oil extraction process, right?
Yeah, with different aerial rings are products of
like
oil
petrol.
fractioning process.
And can you describe to me a little bit, like how currently is BCP compound replace or impact the preclinical drug discovery stage? How is it doing at the moment?
Well, we don't have any candidate in clinical trials. We have not even reached the PDC stage.
How is pharmaceutical production kind of industry adopting BCP compound at the moment? How are they doing? Is a lot of people start using it, or is it something very new that still need a lot of education? What is the current stage right now of BCP compound adoption?
I can answer this based on market intelligence that we have. Now, this is not necessarily reliable, but from what we have seen through some research papers and some conferences, there are a couple of big players who are getting into the game. This was all recently started by Pfizer, but they published it more as an academic work. So I don't think not a lot of people are actually working in this area, but there are a few. We don't know whether they are taking it to the stage. Actually, we do know that they are not taking it to the higher stage because they don't have reliable supplier of BCP.
So I need to take you back to the financials because this is all about money, actually, right? You're asking for money. Okay. If we look at the valuation that you're coming up with of $27.9 million in the case, in the medium case, you're discounting it by a 40% discount rate.
Yes,
but
yes,
this is in fact a high-risk business because you're going to lose money for 3 or 4 years, and then boom, you're going to make a huge amount of money in year 6. So have you looked at some scenarios on a much higher discount rate, let's say 60 or 70? So normally when you look at an entrepreneur's valuation, they are overly optimistic in one way or another. It's usually a high net profit margin. Yours is so far positive that I can't even figure out what to do with it. But also, you're very positive on your discount rate of 40%. So if your margin came down and your discount rate went up, instead of being worth 30 million, I'd say you'd be worth about 10 million. And that's about how much we're talking about raising. So I don't see the value in this.
To be honest, at the time that I computed this net NPV, I felt that 40% was a fair rate given the nature of the business.
I understand that you think it's a fair rate, but it's low when you think about a startup with no serious revenue for 3 or 4 years.
Thank you
So
for your comment.
the question, let me just ask a question then, and that is, have you done any scenario analysis on, if your margin's lower than you thought, or if your risk is higher than you thought?
So I've done different scenarios, but based on which business units will run. So for example, I've done a lower medium case scenario where we did not develop any PDC. So in that case, in year 6, we would not have any 200 million or 300 million. But our main focus, as we've said, is we are going to manufacture BCP on a large scale. So once we do that, we can license this process. So our way out is through the licensing of this, of around 20 million. So yes, it would, based on a discount rate of 40% or higher, it would bring our NPV down, but at least we provide investors a way out.
I guess one of the other questions that immediately struck me when I read your plan was why you're here. We very rarely see competitors who've already raised over $14 million of seed funding, have relationships with some of the biggest pharma companies in the world who are very well funded, and are looking for a $10 million initial round. So why haven't, given that they jointly own some of the IP of this, why haven't Glaxo written you a check? Or, could you explain a little bit sort of why you're here today?
Sure. So let me clarify the funding, the investments that we have. Most of the 14 million that we have is in kind. So part of that belongs to the institute that I work for, the know-how, the background IP, which is precious and which can be evaluated, which can be given a number. Some of it is cash, we agree, but the whole value is not cash. So that's where 14 million comes from. The second question, can you just repeat the second question again? I was not very clear.
Well, I'm just wondering why someone like Glaxo, who you said through their A-Star, I believe it was, have some joint interest in some of this IP, or why aren't they providing you with further funding for this project?
Just to clarify, the collaboration we had with GSK during that 2-year period, the joint IP only relates to whatever that was developed during that time. So they do not have joint IP with us for everything else that gets produced by VicLab, etc.
But they have to know you, right? They have to know what you're doing, and
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
come they're not interested in it. I think that's the question.
So some of the things we cannot disclose here, but we never said that we are not talking with them or that they are not interested. We may be in a phase where we are having discussions with them, and we are with not just GSK, some major pharma company, and those things are going on in the background. We are going for a roadshow. You are absolutely right. We are at a stage where we can actually go around and people are interested. People have invited us, but we cannot talk here about that. Sorry.
And just want to add to that again, just to answer the question in 2 ways. Why we personally are all here is, we're really passionate about this idea and the fact that the difference it can make to millions of people. But in terms of the funding, I think at this stage we still feel there's a need to get ourselves out there, let people know what we're trying to do. Potentially, you never know how talks may go. Things may break down, etc., with potential people we're speaking with. So we still feel there's a need to get this publicity.
Let me ask you some specific questions that you've got on your report. Right now, as far as the investment amount in US dollars, NTU venture capitalist $5 million. Have you received that money?
No, we have not received that money.
Okay.
We have not incorporated yet.
Okay. So that's not cash you have.
That's not the cash we have yet, no.
Is there a way that
The Vikrant and the other one, A-Star, are in kind. So you have not received any cash from that 10 million.
No, that's correct.
Okay. So you have not received really any money as of right now.
That is absolutely right, and
So
that answers your question why we are here.
Why they're here.
So
Okay.
is there a way that we could start with a lower capital requirement, and then start focusing on just producing the BCP compound, so that using that revenue to actually self-funding the ventures, so that maybe you can start with a little lower capital, and maybe when your Series A come, then you can ask whatever you need.
That is quite a possibility, because to get to the large-scale manufacturing process, I'm estimating around $500,000 a year. So we could be looking at maybe raising funding of around $2 million for that.
Some people will not accept in-kind equity position as you're proposing here. Would you consider to reduce your in-kind and then do an earn-out where you would gain equity over time, unless you already have cash that you want to put in?
Well, we may be able to negotiate, but that negotiation will have to be done with Agency for Science, Technology, and Research. I mean, they are the ones who actually own it. I'm just an employee there. So yes, it can be up for negotiation.
One thing that I would like to know, maybe it's part of the answer or not. You try to do this in order to help the people. So therefore, if you only go for one major pharmaceutical name, they might keep more profit or not. I'm not so sure. Maybe you can elaborate more, because that's your first page. Your mission is not only making profit.
And that's one of the reasons why we feel it's important to get this idea out there, because if it is just sort of kept, as you say, with one particular sort of big pharma company, they may use it to sort of like make more profits because their costs are reducing. But by getting this out there, and there are lots of regulations in place or pressure from society for big pharmas to actually reduce their costs, by getting this out there, people will know that we are reducing costs during drug discovery phase, and this will contribute towards putting pressure on people to reduce the price of drugs.
Just to add to what he was saying, if you go back to our business strategy slide.
I'm sorry, I have to cut you off there. We've just run out of time. Thank you very much. Big clap.